Well, thank you so much to everyone who joined this call. Was really excited to talk with all of you, as well as thank you for the invite from the EAC grants team. Always great to work with different departments of the EAC, and as communications director, that is one of the best parts of my job. Worked with the grants team in rolling out the announcement of all of the grantees. And, so it's been really great to see this program taking those steps and seeing it come to fruition. And so it's great to be able to be on a call with all of you. And I really appreciate you taking time today to talk about some of the communications tools, as well as some strategies, as well as getting some feedback from you on what you may need for poll worker recruitment day or for your efforts on campuses or in your jurisdictions and communities. Just make sure, there we go. So just a quick introduction for myself. As Tina said, I'm Kristen Muthig. I'm the Director of Communications. I joined the EAC in January of 2020. So not only is this my second presidential election with the agency, but I was also here when we first started National Poll Worker Recruitment Day in 2020. And that was in response to the need, given the pandemic, for poll workers, and just hearing from election officials that was something that they could really use from the EAC. So I was here getting that off the ground very, very quickly, and it has certainly evolved over the last 4 years. Some additional background on me. At the agency, I lead a team, and we do everything from managing media relations to social media, as well as working on revamping the website, maintaining the website, and special projects like this one with Help America Vote Day and National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. Prior to joining the EAC, I worked at a voting rights nonprofit, and I also worked on issue campaigns in Ohio. So I also want to give a hat tip to my colleague, Karen Myers. She was unable to join the call today, but she, one, put together this presentation, and two, is a big part of the communications team and works a lot with Poll Worker Recruitment Day. So I just wanted to sort of give an introduction for her, even though she couldn't join us, unfortunately, today. So diving in on some things that when I'm thinking about Poll Worker Recruitment Day and some of the communications activities that you all are going to be doing around your programs, sort of thinking about that timeline is really key. Obviously, we have, we're mid-May, and August 1st will be here before we know it. But there's still a lot of work that can be done now leading up to August 1st, as well as after August 1st, leading up to Election Day as we're getting closer there. So, I think especially with this being a college poll worker program, that's sort of a complicating factor, but I think there's still a lot of things that can be done. And there's a lot of benefits to that with students coming back to campus late August, early September, and some great opportunities there. Thinking about before college students are returning to campus, I think there's a few things, and I know we have some different audiences here with election officials, college campuses themselves, as well as organizations. So I want to sort of think about you as different entities and different audiences. But I think one of the biggest things before students return to campus right now over the summer, where it may be a little bit slower, if you're a institute of higher education, connecting with the local election offices in your community, and every election office is different. There are still primaries being run. There is no real slow time right now for election officials. So starting that outreach, being patient in terms of getting responses back from election offices, I think is really key and a good opportunity to do now. For election offices, the same thing, connecting with the local colleges and universities in your jurisdiction. Keeping in mind, like right now is graduation, that transition from the spring semester to summer. I don't think there's ever a slow period for anyone these days. But it just gives an opportunity to reach out to the local universities, start with communications offices, see where you can work with them, and sort of establish those lines of communications, those points of contact. For everyone, if media, especially if you aren't necessarily the press contact at your office, looking at which reporters may be good to connect with on your programs and what you'll be doing, and starting at least with, maybe there's a list of reporters, a list of contacts, and starting to establish those relationships. They may not know about Poll Worker Recruitment Day, but it's really nice to provide a news hook, something that is timely, to really highlight your work. And I think one of the big things overall for leading up to Help America Vote, for National Poll Worker Recruitment Day, and for when students return to campus, is really making that plan. What are the elements that we're going to do? I know you've all outlined, what you want to do on your programs when you were filling out and applying for these grants, but making a plan for what to do now. What can you do in terms of outreach and establishing those lines of communications? So I also don't want to just talk at you for this presentation. I know that's not helpful, especially at the end of the day. But I did want to ask folks, is there anyone here who in the past has participated in Help America Vote Day? Oh, sorry, excuse me, I'm ahead on my questions. My question for this one is, how many of you participating today have already reached out to your local election offices or your institutions? And if you have, is there any advice or things that you would want to share about that outreach? And you can put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I will try to make sure that I'm not covering up things or anything like that. Okay, great. Mary has at Rockford University. Awesome, from Leah. Let's see, and just in case, I'm going to read some of these comments. They're way ahead. Weber State is way ahead. They're saving spots in their poll worker spots for us. That's Weber County at Weber State. That's great, Leah. Stephanie Quirk, yes, we've reached out to our local election officials for the College of DuPage and EPCC in El Paso, Texas. They already had a relationship. That's great to hear. Adam Smith, have a meeting tomorrow. That is fantastic. And Anna Keller, you've already reached out. Awesome. And you were able to, and that's, and I apologize for A. Rolfs, but you already had poll workers for the primary. That's fantastic. Miami-Dade added a question on their application form that asks if the person is from a college, and if so, which one, for tracking purposes. That's great from Miami-Dade. That is I know some local jurisdictions have specific college poll worker applications, but that's great that they were able to incorporate that. All right, Mary Weeks Baxter, contacted by the U.S. Congressman who is part of efforts to get funding for this program, and his office set out the press release announcing it. That's fantastic. Paul Brown, working directly with the State Board of Elections for University of Maryland. That is great to hear. And local university built grants and activities together when we wrote the grant in 2023. College is pretty much non-existent until the students return. Understand that, Whitney. All right, and the final one, we had poll workers for the primaries and worked on getting election workers for special elections in May. Crystal, that is great. Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much. And hopefully too, we can sort of compile some of these comments, and if there's any best practices or some of that information, this is incredibly helpful. So you all are getting a jump start. It seems like you've already had some like good success in everything too. So I think this is fantastic. So move ahead. So just want to, I know you are obviously familiar with Poll Worker Recruitment Day, the EAC, but did just want to go through a couple small things about these days of action. As I mentioned, the EAC established this in 2020 to really encourage potential poll workers to sign up, and as we use in our hashtag and our URL, Help America Vote. This has always been, encouraging poll workers to sign up has been a big priority for the agency, especially in the last 4 years. And we also added another day of action. Help America Vote Day was held on January 30th. Similar to, because of what Tina had said earlier, August 1st, before a presidential general election, may not work for every election official or every election office. January 30th, when we held Help America Vote Day, that may not work for poll worker recruitment. So the EAC essentially created these 2 days of action to help election officials and others use these two, and maybe it's voter education or poll worker recruitment based on their needs during that time of the year. In January, we did have 37 states and Guam and DC participate in Help America Vote Day. And it really was fantastic to see just this wave of participation. And I think one of the biggest things too about these days of action is not just making it an opportunity for election jurisdictions, organizations, businesses to participate, but it's also raising awareness that this is an opportunity. A lot of people that we've heard that have eventually signed up may have said they didn't know that this was an actual opportunity. So just raising awareness of what being a poll worker is, that you're getting training, that you're getting paid, is all part of why we created these days of action. Not to put you all on the spot again, but have any of your election offices or your organizations, your campuses participated in Help America Vote Day or National Poll Worker Recruitment Day? Not to put anyone on the spot, but just curious. And I can be in the chat, or I can look for this year. No, okay. Great, BMCC did. So it looks like some people, for Crystal, Robert said our college has with the help of League of Women Voters. Great. Rockford elections, this is great. Mary Weeks Baxter said we tabled January 30th and had the head of Rockford elections office there to answer questions, recruited one student. Good for a small college, absolutely. Anna Keller said the major campuses did, and Heather Eichling helped host an event on Help America Vote Day in January. And perfect. Josh Young had just mentioned, since students aren't going to be on campus, they're going to be celebrating MVRD on 9/17, September 17th, and we want to co-brand that also as Poll Worker Recruitment Day. I think that's fantastic, and NVRD is certainly one of those very well established civic holidays, and the EAC also participates in that, raising awareness. So great, thank you all for sharing that information. All right. I know the grants team shared a toolkit for the announcement that you are grantees. If you haven't participated in Help America Vote Day or Poll Worker Recruitment Day, the EAC also provides a toolkit for resources for Help America Vote Day. The previous toolkits are still available on our website at helpamericavote.gov and the election official resources for poll worker recruitment. So you are welcome to use older graphics, our logos, but we will be soon releasing a toolkit that is revamped, and it has all of the branded information for Help America Vote, National Poll Worker Recruitment Day 2024. When we started off, we had some very basic graphics, did some videos, and over the years, the more we've been doing Help America Vote Day and Poll Worker Recruitment Day, we've found that every jurisdiction, every organization has different capacity for communications. Some people may have a full-blown communication staff. Others, it's the election official or a person who is managing a lot of other tasks in an office, trying to do communications, customize graphics, and write social media. So we're trying to assist people using our toolkit as best we can. So we do provide customized social media graphics. We have been using PowerPoint actually as a way to customize that. And so I think at this point, everyone has PowerPoint, but it's really, it's already sized. You can add your logo, you can add different colors, you can pull characters, things like that, and really make it your own, or you can use the graphics as is and maybe just add your URL in the social media copy. Similar to that, we provide sample social media copy that may just give you a guide or, point you in the right direction for some social media for the day or around that. We also have some videos, and we do have a template for creating your own short video for Poll Worker Recruitment Day using PowerPoint. You don't have to be an expert in Adobe or Photoshop or anything like that. We try to make it as accessible as possible for those of us, and myself included, who are not graphic designers. Additionally, we have templates for press releases. We're hoping to also have a template for a community partner email. So if you want to do additional outreach to community groups, it'll give you a template for what is the ask and sort of helping with that outreach. And the EAC is helpamericavote.gov for the EAC is sort of like the hub that we point everyone to. With voters, there's a lookup tool with poll worker information, but it also just has information on what a poll worker is and answers some of the questions that people who are interested in being a poll worker may have. My question for folks, we're working on revamping the 2024 Poll Worker Recruitment Day Toolkit. Is there anything that would be helpful to include in a toolkit that, I see Whitney, you beat me to it. Is there anything that would be good to add it in a toolkit that may be helpful for us to consider and try to include there? Whitney just added, are there best practices resources for radio ads? We don't have that in the toolkit right now, but Lisa O'Connor, tax forms. Lisa, could you expand on that?
Sure. So thank you so much for having this. We just came back from having our poll worker training and on campus, and we had the Board of Elections here. And one of the things that they were explaining to us is that some of the times we forget that tax forms are needed. And so as we're talking to our students, we should be reiterating that there are tax forms that when they are filling out those forms, they should also fill out and submit, because not all the time their district or wherever they're reporting to is going to say, hey, did you fill out the form? So they were giving us those points because they noticed for best practices, a lot of our college students were missing that portion. And they were very specific too. Like if you are between the ages of 17 and 24, there's an IT 2104E that should be submitted as well. And a lot of our students weren't aware of that. And that would that would exempt them. So if they're going to earn the 1,000, depending on where they are, they will get that full 1,000, and it's to be submitted when they're doing the paperwork, not at the tax day. Because we were clarifying that with our students today too. So those information, like, we did not know. And if they weren't here telling us those little tidbits, we wouldn't have known to do that.
Well, thank you so much for expanding on that.
Absolutely.
I think that sort of goes to building that relationship, and for a campus, when you're asking working with your election officials, what are some of those things like? Are there requirements in this jurisdiction for tax forms, so that way all of that income is appropriately filed? That varies by state, so that may be good to clarify. And I guess with election jurisdictions, if you're working with a campus and those are some of the things that would be good to communicate for students, that I think that's part of that, the importance of that relationship and understanding the needs, communicating both ways for that information. Let's see, Josh Young, we need help convincing students about the why, helping them understand how it will help our democracy and also them personally in a student-friendly way. Videos related to that or talking points, I need to review the current resources. We do have a poll working 101 video that we are revising. It was something that we created in 2020, but it basically talks about the fact that training, if people don't know that they're going to get training, you're not just going to walk into an election office on election day and you're just left on your own. You get that training, you can ask questions. There are leaders in the polls and the voting locations that will be there to assist. I think like the why, it's almost all of these positions are paid positions. You're not doing this necessarily to get rich, but it is something that when you're dedicating time, that it is a paid position, and that varies by jurisdiction. But I think that is a really good point is the why of signing up to be a poll worker. Okay, let's see. We're creating a film to release on August 1 through social media and to be posted on our civic engagement resource page on the website. Planning to film our congressman and a couple students talking about applying to be a poll worker and why it's important. Should we include your logo? Anything else? You are more than welcome to use the Help America Vote logo. And I would say, and just want to give Mary Weeks Baxter, this is your question. I think this is one of the questions, who is your audience? Is your campus in multiple counties? What is the easiest URL to drive them to find election information from that trusted source from your local election office? So I think you can always use helpamericavote.gov, but the more specific you can be for your local jurisdiction and where you can drive people to actually sign up or find more information, that would be the best. And we do have on our website just the National Poll Worker Recruitment Day logo, Help America Vote logo. So you're more than welcome to use anything like that. One of our goals, and this is from Josh Young, one of our goals is to make a short video with our students making the case about being a poll worker. I think that's fantastic. Something else that I've seen also from election jurisdictions is highlighting previous poll workers and asking them to talk about why they signed up to be a poll worker and what impact that had on their experience and how the experience was to them. Putting a face to being a poll worker and the people who have had experience on that, I think is fantastic. And we've seen people do that in a few different ways. And I do want to just flag the one, Whitney, I did not forget about your question for best practices and resources for radio ads. But I think we don't have that in our toolkit. But I think my only suggestion there is short, plain language and having as short a URL to point people to. I think is the best for radio ads. And I think sometimes too with radio also having a lot of streaming services. If you do radio ads, seeing if there are streaming opportunities for those who are listening online, if it does come with some online advertising, and keeping those messages as short and simple as possible. And also, I'm using the term poll worker. That also may not be the terminology used in your election jurisdiction, in your state. In Maryland, I know there are election judges. So I think that's also just being aware. I'm using poll worker as a general term, but using the term that is specific for your community also will help people find that information and make sure that it resonates. Kendra Lutz, have a repository of best practices folks can either self-add or your team could point to that encompasses innovative or unique strategies to recruit students. I think this is fantastic, and you're also getting a jump start on a couple slides from now. So I think I'll have some of those best practices to show here, but I think that's also a good point, and something that we're hoping to add this year is here are some examples of what people previously did. Oh, perfect. And there's also an Instagram from Heather Eichling, an Instagram example there too. So thank you very much, everyone. Just moving on. Here are some of the examples of the poll worker recruitment day graphics and variations. With the graphics, there are different variations of people checking in voters. We have, voting lines. The characters are, maybe it's different pairs of people, one person. We try to add like a lot of diversity, body diversity. So you can use the characters and update these graphics. These are just a few examples. However best works for you, however best works for your community and the message that you're sending. So there's lots more where this came from. This is just a quick sample. And to some of the good examples, these are some examples that we pulled from around some of the communities that you all represent. I don't think, and just if I missed Guam joining, I'm not sure what time it is out there, but I wanted to highlight Guam as one example here at the start. For Help America Vote Day on January 30th, they collaborated with the University of Guam, and island leaders held Help America Vote and a Help America Vote Day event on campus. They encouraged students to be precinct officials in the upcoming election and also used it to spread awareness on voter registration and emphasizing the importance of their voice in the island's future. They live streamed the event and also had press coverage. So you can see here, this is one example of, you've got the university logo, the election commission logo, as well as the Help America Vote logo. This language for like what Help America Vote Day is some of the sample language that we provide, and then here are just some of the headlines from that day. So Guam is one of the grantees, but they also specifically did they specifically did some work with the University of Guam, so wanted to use that as the first example. On these, wanted to highlight, let's see, this is the Miami-Dade county elections on the left. They used a photo from, I think this is either training or on that day, I think they're swearing folks in, and, use their office branding here. So even though they're participating in Help America Vote Day, they're still using their own branding, and that is totally fine. Whereas you can see with Hillsborough County, the Supervisor of Elections Office, they took the basic graphic that we had and customized it with their logo, added additional logos, and added background, and like really took that a step further. So that was just another example of some of the things that people have done with the graphics themselves. Next, we have Maryland State Board of Elections. This is another example of one of the EAC's like sample graphics. This one they didn't customize, but they obviously, you can see that they used their language. They use election judge in their social media. And this is just using some of the branding just directly from the EAC. And also, I believe we have some UMD representation, but the EAC worked with the University of Maryland to actually host the 2024 election summit with the campus at the campus at College Park. And you can see here, this is just one of the headlines from the student newspaper covering that event, and just really appreciated their partnership. And it was great to have that event on Help America Vote Day earlier this year. Have a few more examples. We have the Ohio Secretary of State's office. You can see this is an example with like obviously geared toward young voters and signing up to be a poll worker. And they use the Help America Vote hashtag, but that is all their branding and, excuse me, and something that they designed themselves. For Charleston, they added their logo and customized this for, I believe this is for, yes, also Help America Vote Day. And we also have the Illinois State Board of Elections. And you can see this is also options. Those are two characters that are part of the character options, but you have that branding, and then they highlighted the qualifications for being an election judge and using those graphics in a different way. Finally, just a few more examples, but we do have, let's see, this is the Georgia College and State University, and they were promoting their election administration programs, just using the logo there for Help America Vote Day. West Virginia Secretary of State's office did quite a bit for Help America Vote Day. And again, this is one of the characters and customizing it with their logo. And Miami-Dade Elections too, they made a less than 30-second video to recruit poll workers. And the Miami-Dade example, that is from the 2023 National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. So just wanted to flag that. And Tina, if there are any comments or anything like that that I'm missing, just nudge me and I'll make sure to pause there. So just wanted, oh great. Just wanted to talk some more about some like strategies and ideas that you may be able to act on now or keep in mind for the future. Most college students are going to be returning mid to late August. And I think that does give a lot of time to maximize and like execute efforts for what your plans are going to be. Obviously, you mentioned earlier, a lot of you mentioned earlier that you've already been making those connections, making those points of contact, and I think that's fantastic. One thing that I think would be helpful to think about is meeting students where they are, even though they're not there right now, but sort of having that plan of action. What are the classes that would be good to reach out to? What are the organizational meetings, sporting events that are coming up, Greek life events that are coming up, job fairs that may be happening on campus, and plotting out who's going to be reaching out to those, how much can you do, trying to figure out the best way to use resources. So that way, when the students are back on campus, you have that plan in place to really put it in action. Also wanted to touch on some things with targeted marketing. It's one of those things where communications aren't effective unless they're reaching your intended audience. And I think from back in my campaign days, I apologize if there's sirens in the background. But one of the things that I always think about with communications is, for someone to remember something, they have to see it multiple times. For someone to act on it, they have to see it over and over and over again. So thinking about a mix of communications, a mix of marketing is a really good way to make sure that your message is being seen and also motivating people to act on it. So one of the examples here is, if you're trying to recruit poll workers, say at Weber State University in Utah, you may want to take out an ad in the student newspaper. The signpost is the example that we have here, and it may also encourage people. I know there's online versions of newspapers, as well as maybe there's still some print ones out there, but just thinking about that as a potential outreach. You also have local advertising and things like local newspapers like The Patch. That is a big network of newspapers, but also just your local newspaper if that is still available. And there's also options for things like Google ads as well as Facebook ads. You can really, depending on your budget and what you have capacity for, those are things that you don't necessarily have to be a graphic designer to create, but you can work with your budget and see, you can really target your audience to a very close geographic area there. One thing that just wanted to highlight in terms of targeted ads and like what makes a good targeted ad, really the headline should be a summary of what you're offering, what you want to get across. The text should always be plain language, trying to be as direct as possible. And I think it was great to see a lot of people saying that they're creating videos. They have created videos. Videos and a graphic also really help grab that eye. So making sure that there's some kind of media attached and you have a very clear call to action. Just a quick question: is anyone planning on doing any ads or social media buys or anything like that in local publications that they would want to share? That's totally fine. If not, just want to go over a lot of different options and some different things to at least consider. One thing too, and this is something that as an agency, federal agency, we have to be very careful about, is get out the vote versus information sharing. Even as a federal agency, we do not do get out the vote activities. But the best thing to, and I think that's also something to be mindful. And I think the grants team has provided some guidance they're always happy to answer questions on, is this a get out the vote activity, and provide guidance there. But I think just being careful when it comes to that is just a good rule of thumb. One of the things that we use or we think about when we're considering this is, you know, instead of saying, I like go vote, register to vote, is here's how to find information on registering to vote. To find information on your options to cast a ballot, use trusted sources of information like your state or local election office. Just making sure driving people, you know, if you want to become a poll worker, visit helpamericavote.gov to find more information. So just really driving people to where to find information. And we always want to encourage people to use trusted sources of information. State and local election offices are the best place to find the best election information directly from the source. So always driving people to those election resources. And like a lot of that is online at this point.
Your vote has been in the chat, Kristen, from Josh.
Perfect. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, let's see. So Josh, we've got Josh Young at Miami-Dade. We're going to meet with our college's social media team and develop and implement an internal plan. That is fantastic. For Heather Eichling, no local publications yet, but planning to run through sponsored ads through Palo Alto College. That's fantastic. And Crystal Robert will have a social media push again as November election nears with images of our students. The elections office has asked us to remind folks that pay has increased to $15 an hour for election workers in November. That's fantastic. I think that gets that message that it is a paid position. So I think that's great. Let's see, would it be okay to co-brand National Voter Registration Day and Poll Worker Recruitment Day so people know we are promoting both on 9/17? Is this not get out the vote, just encouraging registration? So I think co-branding them, just taking that question is fine. One thing I do find is if you are sharing information on voter registration and driving people to your county or your state election page for voter registration, that's going to be a different link than poll worker recruitment. So I think if there is co-branding that you can do, that's fine. But if you're doing a post, it may be trying to send or put in too much information or too many links in one post. But even with when we're doing NVRD activities, it's really directing people where they can find information on updating their voter registration, which is particularly helpful for college students, or checking their voter registration to make sure it's updated, as well as doing a new voter registration form. So there's a lot of messaging that can be done just about taking those steps for voter registration. And it may be a separate post, a separate ad, a separate flyer, or depending on your communications for poll worker recruitment itself. Crystal Robert, we had some local publications at the EPCC newspaper. Great link there. I will definitely check that out. And they're also going to be part of a panel on elections and voter education with the local NAACP. Fantastic.
Josh, and sorry, Kristen, I just want to jump in here really quick. Just from a grants perspective, you want to make sure that if you are co-branding, the funds for your poll worker grant can only be used for that poll worker recruitment. So if you are going to co-brand, you want to make sure that you have separated those funds. In this case, it might be an allocation formula, such as we anticipate half of our audience being for National Voter Registration Day. And so this separate pool of funding is going to be paying for half of that marketing. Just to be clear on that, voter education is allowable, but not voter registration efforts.
highlight some additional EAC communications resources. All of our materials are online. Anyone is welcome to use these. So I wanted to highlight, we have Comms 101, and that really goes through some best practices on tailoring messages to your community, working with the media, hosting events, and other public relation tactics. If you don't have a communications staff or you're not a communications staffer yourself, this may be a good reference. We'll be happy to share links to this as well. We also have, and this is going to be coming out, I think tomorrow, but the election official social media toolkit. This is going to be a resource that has over 150 customizable graphics for things like poll worker recruitment, options to cast a ballot, for different civic holidays, things like that. And it's different sizes. It has alt text. It has sample social media. So we're very excited about this new resource. It's going to be released tomorrow. So be looking for that, and happy to share a link to that. But again, we try to make things customizable. So if you see something in the social media toolkit that may work better for your messaging, or, sort of, you can use these however best works for you. This is, as we're talking with the college audience, this is one area where it's good to plagiarize. We're going to encourage you to use our resources, adapt them, pull them, use them however you need. And of course, if you have any questions on the resources, how best to use them, the EAC, Karen, myself, the rest of the EAC comms team are certainly here to help as well. And just before I wrap up, here's just all of the social media channels that the EAC has, and where we do a lot of our own poll worker recruitment activities. If you need any of that, if you aren't following us, please do. I would also say, if there are areas that would be good for the EAC to highlight on our social media, or if there are events that you're doing that may be good for the EAC to put a national spotlight on, please let us know. If there are things that may be good to do some media pitching around from the EAC's perspective, please let us know. We're happy to help any way we can. And we're very excited to see what everyone is doing. And finally, for contacting, I will share my personal email in the chat there, but clearinghouse@eac.gov is a very good way to reach out to the EAC, and if it's a question that we can't answer, I can send it over to the grants team. Maybe it's a question for them, or just for comms. So that's I will put my personal email in the chat, but that's a general email address that will definitely get answered there. So with that, I thank you, and I will certainly, I know there's a couple things in the chat, but two will answer any questions. Oh, great. Mary Weeks Baxter sent another video that announced the grant. I will take a look at that too. As far as logos, the EAC grant is allowing us to do all so much new exciting poll worker outreach work, but full disclosure, we've been rushing to create marketing materials, and I realized we have not included the EAC logo. Can you provide some guidance and expectations on use of your logos, which ones, etc.? Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no requirements like that in the grant itself, correct?
That's correct.
So I think from a comms perspective, you can really use whichever logo works best. So there's a logo that is just Help America Vote Day, and there is one, or there will be one for Help America. It's circle Help America Vote Day and then says National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. If there are some things I would recommend, and this is something that as we were doing it in 2020, I didn't think of myself, but if there are things that you think are going to be evergreen, or used after August 1st, just make sure not to include the date, so that way it doesn't seem, it doesn't expire, if you will. But you can use the EAC logo. I think if it's EAC logo versus Help America Vote National Poll Worker Recruitment Day, I think it all depends on your messaging. You're welcome to use the EAC logo. You're welcome to use the Help America Vote Day logo. And also, if you want us to take a look at it, happy to do that as well. So I don't think there's necessarily guidance. It's more up to you and what works best for the platform that you're using. I think in the Guam example, they use just the Help America Vote logo. They didn't use the EAC, but I think in Hillsborough County, there was the EAC logo and the Help America Vote and the Hillsborough County logo there too. So I think it just depends on the platform and what works for your graphic, for your tool there. Are there any other questions, any feedback, anything like that? Well, if that is it, then I will stop sharing my screen, and Tina, I'll turn this back over to you. Thank you all so much. Really excited to see all of the work coming up this year.
Kristen, that was fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.